And then the sheave will come off in one piece. You'll see the collar. You can go ahead and leave that on. This machine's only has about 100 miles on it, so I'll inspect everything, make sure everything looks good and greased. But let me get this stock sheave to the bench. We'll get the grease cover off, cam plate out of it, and get the weight swapped out. Okay guys, we got the sheave on the bench here. Basically you take, there's 8 Phillips head screws around the top of the grease cover off, and then the grease cover will come off like so. Cam plate pulls out, which has your sliders on it. You can see those. This one obviously has grease because it's a stock Yamaha sheave. Basically all you're going to do is pull the weights out. There's 8 of them. And basically drop the new ones in. There's not really any rhyme or reason how they go in. They're round weights, so just drop them in. Again, this sheaves, this machine only has about 100 miles on it, so anytime you have it apart, you want to make sure you check and service your sheave and your CVT. There's supposed to be grease packed in. There's a groove that goes around the inside, and then you want to read how you're supposed to properly grease all this. Like I said, this is pretty much brand new. Everything looks good and clean, so I'm going to leave it be. Plus they didn't send me any grease, so I'm just going to clean all this off here, make sure it stays in the journals. Wipe this slip off here. I think there's a seal that's there, maybe not. Put our cover back on. Basically just put all your screws in. Sure they're all started. And there you have it. The new weights are installed. And we're going to put it back in the machine, make sure everything's nice and clean, no grease. I like to usually use brake cleaner on the face, but I don't know if you can see down in here. This is the groove. Let me see. This groove down here is what needs to be packed with grease, and it looks real good. It looks nice and full. But let's get it back over to the machine. We'll get it put back in and get the cover put back on. Okay guys, back at the machine here. You just want to make sure your collar's pushed all the way snug up against the fixed sheave. And basically all you're going to do is slide it on. Make sure the teeth go through the cam plate and everything's sitting nice and flush. Next goes your spacer and your nut. I use an air gun to take these off and tighten them. Make sure your spacer's over top of your cam teeth. It's nice and centered. I know there's probably a torque spec for this, and maybe they sell a tool that grabs onto these things or something, but air gun works great. Never had a problem. As Todd said, that's how he does it. That's how I've been doing it. But let's go ahead and get the belt back on. I always lay my belt, put it back on the same way I took it off. So just go ahead and get it started. And on. Then go ahead and back your bolt out. Again, I used one of the bolts out of the support bracket for this, one of the shorter bolts. I believe the top right and the bottom left have longer bolts, so make sure you pay attention to that when you put it back together. When I put the belt back on like that, you can see it's loose. I usually try to turn it to get it set back in the sheave before I put it back together, just to make sure everything's good. You can see there everything went back where it's supposed to go. So basically what I'm going to do now is put the bearing support back on and then bolt the cover back up. Alright, the bearing support's back on. Like I said, there's 4 bolts. The one at the top and bottom are the long bolts. These 2 are the shorter. Got that on. Just make sure everything's seated real good. And make sure everything's nice and clean when you put it back together. I'm going to stick the cover back on and hook up the intake and the exhaust, and that pretty much wraps this small little build up. So basically we got some 27 by 10 by 14 EFX motor claws on 14-inch MSA wheels, and Yamaha's basically doing a small kit that's basically lighter weights to compensate for their big wheel and tire kit. I didn't get a chance to measure the stock weights versus the new weights that were put in. I didn't have a scale, so I believe there were some comments on there that someone probably has, but like I said, I believe it's probably only 2 grams down or something from what the stock ones are. So I'm going to basically get the rest of that buttoned up, and I'm actually going to leave it apart because I got the heater coming hopefully here in the next week or so. So I'm going to leave the floor panels and all that out of it because I believe it does go on this side. So I hope you guys enjoyed the little video, and thanks again to Yamaha for letting us play with this X4 and sending us some goodies to show you guys how to install. And also we'll be doing the heater kit install, so keep an eye out for that video. Thanks for watching, guys.